So today in Math with McComish, we're going to be looking at linear inequalities. We use linear inequalities to show a range of values possible rather than an equation which shows a single value that's possible. So let's write a linear inequality for each one of these. If the speed limit is 55, you cannot go over 55. You can go less than 55. So your speed, and this is so that you don't get a ticket, your speed would have to be less than or equal to 55, okay, in order not to get a ticket. Okay, let's look at this example. Height restriction. You must be at least 102 centimeters to go on this ride. So you could be 102 centimeters or above it. So your height would have to be greater than or equal to 102 centimeters for you to be allowed to go on that ride. This milk should be stored at temperatures below 4 degrees. So your temperature for this milk should be below or less than 4, not equal to, less than 4. And finally, to watch this movie, your age should be over or equal to 14. So that's how we kind of write a linear inequality to show a range of values. Okay, we need to get these signs straight in our head. We always start where the variable is and say it from there. So what this says is x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so it can equal 5, but it could also be more than 5, and it would satisfy the inequality. Okay, this one says x has to be less than, or it could be equal to 4, but it can't be greater than. It has to be less than or equal to. This one here says x has to be greater than 3. And finally, this one says x has to be less than 3. Remember, the alligator tries to eat the larger value. Okay? If your variable's on the other side, it doesn't actually matter. So what this says is x, we start by reading it from x, has to be less than or equal to 10. Okay, so make sure you just read it from the variable, and the alligator mouth always eats the larger value. So 10 would have to be the biggest value possible, but it could be, x could be less than that too. So let's look at these. Contestant entrants must be at least 18 years old. So their age has to be greater than or equal to 18, because they could be 18, but they could be over that as well. B, the temperature has been below -5 for the last week. So the temperature has been less than -5 for the last week. You must have 7 items or less to use the express checkout line. So if you have I for items, you must have less than or equal to 7 items to use that. And scientists have identified over 400 species of dinosaurs. So S for species of dinosaurs is over or greater than 400. Okay, let's look at how we can graph these. So what this says is t has to be greater than -5. So our graphs for linear inequalities involve number lines. Okay, if it cannot equal that value, like in this case, it's greater than -5, but it cannot equal -5, we use an open circle for that, and then a directional arrow to show what direction it's going. So any value greater than -5 works for this one. Okay, this one over here, x has to be less than or equal to -2. Now it can be -2, so we fill it in with a dot. It's a filled in circle, and x can be anything less than that as well. So it's important to get that distinction between an open circle where it's not equal to it and a closed circle where it could be equal to it. Okay, let's look at this one. A is greater than or equal to 0.5. So I start at 0.5, and A can be anything greater than that or equal to it, so I fill in the dot. Okay, I could use fractions as well. P has to be less than -25 thirds, which is negative 8 and 1/3. So I find that on my number line. Open circle, P can be anything less than that. Okay, couple situations. Stephen Curry broke the record for most threes in a season, making over 400 three-pointers. So if I did T for three-pointers, he made over 400. Okay, if I draw my line, I could put 100, 200, 300, 400, and it goes on from there. So over 400, not equal to 400, he made over. So I'm going to do an open circle at 400 and point it up to show that he made more than that. Okay, number 2, the temperature is supposed to be a high of 8 and a low of negative 2. So draw my number line, put 0 on it. So I got negative 2 here. I got 8 right here. So this one's going to show a range. A high of negative 8. So that's right here. It could be negative 8. Low of negative 2. Could be any of that. So my graph shows all those values. Okay. Now my temperature, if I were to write an inequality for it, has to be greater than or equal to negative 2, but less than or equal to 8. That's the range of my temperatures. So I can put the variable in the middle and put values on the outside of that. Hey, I want you to try these videos or these graphs and show me your results when you're finished.